We're just getting everybody coming in from the waiting room. So let's just give it a second here and see if there's anybody else joining us. Hope everybody's enjoying the summer. We're already mid-July. I think we're good to go. Let me just take a look at the participants list. Yeah. We've got one more person joining. All right. Yeah, I think we'll get started. All right, again, good afternoon. And so it's been a while. And since the last time we met, some of you may be aware that WSIB was on strike. And so we'll give you the update. We just got, I think on Monday, I believe they returned. And we just got one email letting us know that they're back. And that they're kind of meeting to, look at what strategy they'll use to catch up. The main backlog, as you're aware, is going to be validations, because on our end during the strike, really it was more or less business as usual. We're setting up people, doing topic selection, topic reviews, and sending topics for validation that were complete. But then when they were sent for validation, they were just in the queue. They were on, because validations were on hold. The validators are part of the union, so they were obviously not around. And because they needed to redeploy the management team to other WSIB departments, there was nobody doing HSEP. So HSEP kind of was on hold. So on that front, I haven't heard anything on a backlog for rebates. I believe the May rebates did go out. You would have gotten, some of you who closed out action plans probably got an email that your achievement reports are ready. But when I looked at the number, it was not too many of our members were caught in that time frame. And so the next rebate run will be for anyone who closes a plan from May 1st to July 31st, and that rebate goes out the end of August. That's the same for any of you that are new members, and I have approved your action plan, the $1,000 for joining. That will also, for anyone in that window, which is May 1st to July, the end of July, that will also go out the end of August. So if you just joined, and I haven't heard about any backlog on that. I don't see, that will be affected by the strike. And as I hear more on validations and backlog, I will let you know, right? It just means it'll take longer to close out action plans. That's pretty well it. But like I said, we haven't heard what strategy they're going to be using. They told us that they're going to be meeting to look at that. We also have a provider meeting next week, so I'm sure we'll get some updates there on what's been happening. So as far as program updates, anything specific to the program, there's nothing to report, because since our last meeting, basically, I don't know, shortly after that, they went on strike. So nothing from the WSIB end as far as changes. I just wanted to do some updates kind of from our end today, and look at one specific thing, which I wanted to kind of share with you, because it's some of the common stuff that I have to give feedback on when I'm doing my reviews. So we'll talk about that today as well. And as usual, please unmute, ask any questions. Meeting is being recorded so that anyone who couldn't make it can view it as well. And Jennifer will let you know when it's available, when it's for view. All right. And we'll also, of course, send out the handout that you're viewing on the screen as well. So, so as usual, the expiry date responsibility for tracking is your responsibility. You'll get notices sometimes from me. You'll get a 30-day notice for sure from WSIB. The one thing that is a common issue, and I've kind of updated this slide to address it. Really, there are two expiry dates, and now when I send you the email for the after the approval, there's an email I send you with the packages. I'm putting two dates on there, right? So there's the total action plan expiry date, which is the published date on the portal, right? But if you look at the terms of service agreement and anything else that I publish, the last topic that you have for submission is required to be sent to me for validation 4 weeks prior to that expiry date. So really, if your portal expiry date is July 10th, then June 10th, you should have submitted all the topics. And if you had one left, that's the last date, right? Because we need that buffer to do any reviews, any feedback, any changes, right? So that's what that 4 weeks is built in, because I keep getting at the last minute 3 or 4 topics, 3, 4 days before the portal expiry date. And I mean, I can't guarantee that my schedule will allow for that quick turnaround, number one. And number two, if there is a lot of work that needs to be done on that topic, now you're under the gun, and then I'm under the gun again, because as soon as you get it back to me, if you get the gaps filled, I got to validate it right away, right? And so, that's not always going to happen, and I can't be responsible if we miss the portal expiry date because of late submissions, and that's why I have that 4 week buffer built in there. And anything that comes in within that window, I'm not responsible if we miss the submission date, and then it automatically goes to incomplete if nothing gets submitted, right? So please make sure that you always look at the portal expiry date and back another month, 4 weeks from that date, as your actual submission of topics date. That's when they need to be sent to me for review. All right. And the submissions are getting better in how they're organized for packages, because I keep going and reviewing this every single meeting. And so instead of having a bunch of files uploaded, they should be organized under plan, package, do, check, and act. So that's something that there's been some improvement, but sometimes I will send them back if you haven't packaged it properly. And sometimes I get an email, I have 7 things, James. How am I supposed to send it to you? Because there's only room for 5. Well, that's because you're not packaging them. That's the whole reason why we use the concept of grouping things that are files that are together under plan, files that are together under do, check, and act, right? And you even have extra uploads there, because not everybody has an act, which means you've only used up 3. You still have 2 extra in case you have a video that would take up a separate upload, because you can't package that with anything. Or you can split your do into 2 packages if you need to, right? So that's why we do it that way. The other thing that tends to happen is you'll do everything. You'll do the uploads. You'll mark it ready for review, and then you'll log out, right? And it looks like everything is there. If you do that, when I go to the portal, nothing will be there, because you missed one vital step, which is at the bottom of the screen after you do all your submissions, all the uploads. You've got to go outside of those uploads, bottom of the screen, there's a save button, and you have to hit save. And then you'll get a green kind of bar confirmation that everything you've done is saved. Then you could go and see that the uploads are actually there. And so I always tell people that if you're not sure everything worked, once you think you're ready to log out, look at the topic open up the files and see, can you actually open what you uploaded from the portal, right? Because if you can open it from the portal, that means the upload worked well, and I'll be able to upload it for the portal. Saves me sending back that email, nothing's there. So you can do everything, switch it for ready for review. You can do all of that stuff, and then nothing is there when I go look at it, right? So make sure you do that, and then send me the email that you have a topic ready for review. And that's a double check, just in case you forgot to switch it for ready for review. Um, if you don't send me the email and you didn't switch it, I have no clue that you have a topic waiting for me to look at. There's no way I know that. So the two foolproof methods is, once you put it ready for review and you do the proper save, and then send me an email, topic is ready for review. All right. And remember, don't don't send me everything. Don't send me the evidence file. The only thing you can email me is the Word version of the evidence story. All right. Make sure everything is filled in properly. As usual, you can't use third-party links, so don't do that for anything. You 50 megabyte upload size, so you got, when you create those packages, you've got lots of upload bandwidth there, so you can make sure you got all the groupings done properly, right? Haven't had this happen too often. People not waiting the 10 to 12 weeks from the due and check. That's something automatically I'll send it back saying you need to redo the check, and I'll give you kind of an estimated date because you did it too early. So I can't send stuff for validation because validators pick that up all the time. So there's no point in me sending it. They're going to pick up that you did it too early. All right. Don't leave anything blank on the evidence story. If there's nothing in the act, just put that the check showed everything is fine, that you'll continue to monitor that topic, right? So don't leave it blank. And any of the red text, my notes, your notes, make sure you remove them so you have a clean final version. Sometimes people leave the notes in the final version, and it kind of doesn't look good because it's kind of our conversations going back and forth. Final version should be clean. Okay. Any questions on that? Everybody is good. I don't see anything in the chat. I don't hear anybody unmuted and asked. So just a reminder, this next section, that at the last meeting, what I just had found out that for several reasons to give small businesses a break on the topic selection side, it does affect some of you because some of you on the portal are micro, small, or medium. So it's really for temp agencies, it's hard to go by the 99 because some of you may have more than 99 placement workers, but you're still a small, medium, or micro, right? So the best place to look at whether you fall into the exemption for what they call small business is to look at your designation on the portal at the time that we are approving the action plan, right? Because sometimes it changes. So that's another thing that only you know. If there was a change from being large to smaller, and you have less than 99 placements, but when you were in the program before you had a lot more, then I need to know that because we could maybe get you switched to the micro, small, medium, because the portal and the board is not that quick in changing your size designation. So it could help from topic selection point of view if we do that, because the exemption is basically that you're allowed to select any topic you haven't already completed in the program, right? Which is totally different from anyone who is outside of that designation, which is you can only select a topic that you don't already have a standard and procedure developed for. So if you are, regardless of where you did it or when you did it or what state it's in, right? So there's a lot of restriction in topic selection, right? Um, so that's the currently it's still a current exemption. They didn't come out and say it'll be for the whole year. So if it changes, I'll let you know. But as far as I know, they haven't changed anything on it as well. So, and that's something we look at when you are joining, and you would know whether you fall into this or not, because it's the conversation we'll have as well when we do topic selection. So just a reminder of that. All right. So the main thing I wanted to talk about today is the nuances, and these are some of the common things that I see and have to comment on when I'm looking at any topic and the evidence story and how the topic is being implemented, right? Because unique to temp agencies, you're dealing with a number of aspects when you're doing policies and procedures and standards, right? It's going to be topic specific, right? When you're creating a policy, you're going to address the who, what, when, where, and how, right? You must, as you know, address all the topic requirements in the topic requirements guide and legal requirements based on any legal implications of that specific topic, right? So that's always a given. The other thing that's going to be topic specific is how does that topic apply to your branches or offices, whatever you call them? How does it apply to your full-time office staff with management and non-management? How does a topic apply to all your placement workers? And how does that topic apply to client sites, right? So one of the things, and especially validators will look for this, right? And they tend to almost over focus more on your placement because that's sometimes where they perceive the highest risk to be. Um, but sometimes I'll see a policy, I'll look at a policy, or I'll look at an evidence story, and it tends to be kind of lopsided towards a good job, good implementation done, but it's at the branches, at the office and full time. And then I go, well, and I have to write in the comments, what about placement workers? What about at the client site? What about placement workers? What about, like, how are you doing it? Because it's not clear to me. How are you doing this for placement workers, right? Um, so so if the topic has application, no matter what amount, the best thing to do is to outline it right in the policy, right? Different sections, whatever way you want to do it. But it really needs to be clear, because when the validator reads it, they'll want to see, okay, here's what I did for my branches, and it's right in the policy, the who, what, when, where. Here's how we did it for full-time, management staff, management and non-management, for our office staff, who, what, when, where, and how. Placement workers, client sites, right? And it's written exactly into the policy, right? So I look at it, validate, they know exactly what and how you implemented that topic based on how it applies, right? Now, not all validators, it's going to be that obvious. There may be topics where it does not apply to all of those areas, right? It may apply mainly to placement workers and client sites, but not your full-time staff and branches, especially some of the control hazard topics, right? You may be doing working at heights. Well, unless your office and branch staff work at heights, it's not going to apply. And we need to clearly put that in the evidence story, right? If training doesn't apply to one of the groups, we need to clearly state that, even if it's the obvious, state it in the evidence story. So they won't go looking for evidence or anything specific to that, because we told them, look, we didn't train our office staff on this because it doesn't apply to them. Because the only thing you need to train is on the application. Things like control of documents, control of records, those are more administrative. Are you going to train your placement workers on that policy? No, like it doesn't apply to them. The only aspect they have to that is that they can request a record, right? The only thing that applies to them is you make documents available to them, right? How much training like what kind of training you're going to do, right? You can send out a communication or something, right? So there may be topics where it's not as critical for any of those 4 areas where it may not apply. And so in that case, we have to make it very clear in the evidence story, what we didn't do or what we did do, right? Because then they won't be looking for that, because if you don't, then when it comes to the do, they're looking for, okay, how did you implement it at each of those areas, at the branches, for full-time management, non-management, for placement workers, and for client sites? What did you do? How, and that should be in the evidence story, and that should be a direct reflection of your policy, right? So there should always be a connection between the who, what, when, where in the policy, when, where, and how in the policy, and the do. The policy should clearly state everything you're going to do to implement a topic. That's what a policy or a standard is for. So everything that's there should be bulleted in the do, or else you didn't implement your policy, right? So any activity that's required from your policy or standard should be reflected in the do, right? And it would apply, again, topic based on the topic. So one of the common things for every topic, for example, is there needs to be some communication and there needs to be some education or training. So in the evidence story, here's the communication for branch staff, full-time staff. Here's the communication for placement workers. Here's the communication for client sites, right? If it applies. Training, here's how we trained our branch, our full-time staff, our placement workers, and our clients, right? And clients, maybe not training, that's where they put educate, trained. How did you inform your clients of this policy that you have, right? Based on the topic you did. So those are pretty well common to every single topic: communication, educate, train. And so, but it could be all of the other implementation requirements that are based on that topic, right? So we need to make it very distinct so that they understand, and try not to mix each of those categories or put them all together, right? Because it's just much easier for me to look at, okay, I know now that you did activity for each of those areas, how you applied it, right? And then when it comes to the check, all of those things that you did in the do are what you're going to audit or evaluate, right? Which really come from your policy. So you're auditing your policy. That's how you always have to think of your check. Audit the policy. And if your policy was written properly, it'll have the topic and legal requirements. So you're basically auditing the topic and legal requirements, right? If you're using my evaluation checklists, those are templates. If there are things in your standard or policy that are different or additional to what's in the template, if you're using it, add them to the template. They want to see that you're evaluating all of the aspects of your policies. And so the things that I include are typically the minimum topic requirements, and I turn them into kind of a yes no question, right? But there could be things unique to your operation that you should add to the checklist, which would make it even more specific to you than just the template I send you, right? There's always extra rows I keep, and you can add those things that you want to include in the audit for that topic based on your policy, right? And then ACT, sometimes people are putting ACT, they put stuff from the plan because these are activities, kind of look at it from activities that we did, but ACT has nothing to do with that. ACT is only directly resulting from the check, right? So any deficiencies from your topic audit, that will trigger ACT. If there aren't any, there is none. and then you put that standard verbiage, the check did not identify any gaps, so we'll continue to monitor, right? So there's always a direct correlation. So sometimes what happens is I'll find somebody put something in ACT, but then I go to the check and that gap is not anywhere. It's not your checklist says yes, yes, yes. So how come there is an ACT, right? Where did you find it? Where is it recorded that this was a gap? Because your check is showing everything is perfect. So I'll go back and say, okay, well, we've got to come up with somewhere in the check, you've got to mention it, that gap existed because you've corrected it in ACT, right? So sometimes that'll happen. More rarely will I see a gap in check, but then it's not addressed in ACT. That doesn't happen as often, but it sometimes, you'll put a no on the evaluation, but there's no ACT. So I have to send it back saying, okay, I understand. I saw there's a gap there. What did you do to fix it? You have to fill in. You have to do something, right? The more common one is the other one I mentioned, where people have an ACT, but there's nothing in the check that shows that was a gap, right? So has to be a connection between check and ACT, right? So, keep in mind every topic is a little unique on how it applies to a branch, physical location, your full-time management and non-management, some supervisory, non-supervisory workers, who needs to be trained if they oversee placement workers, all that kind of stuff, right? And then placement workers themselves, and then client sites. And they look for that. Did you communicate that you have this policy to your client? Right? Does the client need to be aware? How are they aware? They'll ask. Were they educated? Right? You have your policy. It's kept, it impacts your clients on what you want them to do, especially if your policy has client responsibilities written right in there. Then they're going to ask. Validator will ask, okay, how were the clients educated on their responsibilities? Right? If you didn't, there was no communication, right? A lot of time it does happen at your client site visits. And if that's the case, then you got to tell the validator. We talk about it, we discuss it with our client when we do client site visits before we start placing workers and whatever. Tell the validator that that's what took place, right? Otherwise, they don't know that you did anything. And so client doesn't know their responsibilities, but they're written in your policy, right? So,
Hey James, just
yes,
quick question.
yes, good.
So can it be like part of our contracts as well? Like once we sign the client up and give them like a letter of understanding of what the responsibilities are, like
Uh,
standard across the board.
Yeah, the thing is that typically, because it's in the contract, that's going to be a generic statement.
Yeah.
It's not going to be topic specific,
Okay.
right? So that's probably what the validator will look at. Okay, yeah, because I'm sure all of your contracts say they have to follow your rules. Well, that's everything. I cover this like a blanket statement, right? So that's not going to be enough to support specific communication on a client's responsibilities for a specific topic, right? That's too generic.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
So then for every topic that we come up with, and we just have to piggyback it
yeah,
and figure out how we communicate that verbatim
exactly.
in writing format to the client.
Yeah, writing, verbal, whatever. Writing is better because you can then take a snippet of that and submit it as evidence, right? So
Yeah.
it's just easier to, even if you did it verbal and then followed it up with an email, right? Something like that, right? That would work, right? Um, if it's something that's a conversation that occurs at the time of a client site visit, then that's okay. As long as we tell the validator that, and you may not have evidence of it. That's at least we're telling them this is what we did, the date that we did it, right? So you may not have evidence for that. And again, it's going to be topic specific. There may be topics where there is nothing to educate, communicate, or train a client on, right? Because it's all internal to you, right? So you got to look at it topic by topic, right? The evidence story templates I send you aren't going to have these 4 categories. You have to address those 4 categories based on how you do that topic, right? But you can't just uh, do it for, like, if office staff, if in fact there is some implication to placement workers. That's going to be a big gap, right? And it'll come back for sure. All right. So I would say most of this time, what I have seen is any education or training in dealing with the client, it occurs at the time of client site visits. I know some of you have specific document you send, or information you include or send to the client. You don't have to send them your policy unless you want. I don't think that's a common practice that you send them the whole policy, but you send them some information on what you expect from the client site related to a specific topic. And that has come up more and more as you're doing control hazard topics, right? Where you're sharing your expectations on a specific control hazard topic for your placement workers at that client site, right? Or you're working together on the controls. So there's some education and communication that occurs with the client as a result of that. So it is always unique to which topic you're working on, right?
Well, one more follow-up question to that. I'm
Sure,
sorry, I'll
sure.
take a lot.
No need to be sorry. It's fine.
So, do they? So once we're sending the topic out to clients, does that mean we have to show them all the clients, or just like certain clients?
Yeah,
Do they
so the good question. The rule of thumb is 20%. So evidence collection should be from at least 20% of your clients. So a sample from this guy, and depending on how many what's 20% for you depends on how many clients you actually have. But that's kind of the rule they're looking at. 20% of your clients, evidence from 20% of your clients, right? Um, so kind of look at it from that perspective. Can't just be one client that you present evidence from, unless you only have one, right? So,
Yeah, yeah.
right. But that's why usually in the evidence story, we want to tell them how many workers are there, how many kind of clients on average. I mean, I know it changes day to day, but it gives at least a picture of what your current state is, and that sets the expectation for the validator on how much evidence that they're expected to see. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Any questions specific to anyone working on a topic right now? Um, any questions regarding on feedback that I've provided on a topic? Um,
I mean, on our end, this is our first call.
yeah, your first kind of, yep.
Yeah, we haven't really dived into any of that stuff, but
Yeah,
we
I
still,
think you're working on implementation now, right? You're starting to,
yeah, we're trying to log into the portal, and
well,
I think Brittany's on this call right now.
yeah, so
She's
I already approved your topics, correct? Or are we still at topic selection? Trying to remember.
Yeah, we haven't selected nothing or approved
You haven't
anything.
selected the topics yet. Okay. So we're probably in the topic selection. So this stuff we're talking about now is once you actually get into developing each topic and implementing it, you're going to see this in the evidence story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So we're probably way behind.
No,
So
we're not behind. You just started. Everybody starts a different year, right? So, I
yeah,
mean, we'll
yeah,
have
that's it.
people, we're going to have members starting, in 2 or 3 months from now, and you'll be ahead of them. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's just in a different state in their cycle, right? So
Awesome,
we got, in the last month or two, we've had quite a few so you're not alone, and as far as how many new members,
awesome.
or being a new member. But it's just step by step by step, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you'll see once you do topic selection, you're going to get an email with the packages and the evidence stories that you're going to have to do. And this is kind of, the steps. So it's good. It's good that you're seeing this now because it gives you a head up on what you should be developing and how you should be developing your topics. And it'll help me so I don't have to keep giving feedback and asking questions. How do you do with this, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes I see general statements on communication. We sent this out by email. Okay. So I don't know. Did you send it to full time and placement workers? Because it doesn't say, right? If you did, great. If you only send it to full time, then my comments are going to be, how did you do it for placement workers? If there needed to be communication for them on that topic, I have to ask, I have to put those notes in my feedback on the evidence story because I don't know how you did that based on the way you wrote it, right? So it's got to be very, very clear on what you did for each of those areas based on the application for that topic, right? So the best advice I can give you in preparing now is make sure you keep that topic requirements guide very, very, very handy
Yeah.
because as you're working on a topic, that's the minimum. Can't miss We can't miss anything in your submission related to the topic requirements. And that's always in the topic guide. And don't forget to look at the sample evidence stories. That's in the program guide. So the other guide, the health and safety program guide, has the sample evidence stories. So take a look at that. It gives you an idea of what people have done for plan, do, check, and act, right? So kind of like a little sample, right?
Okay.
Um, so it just gives you an idea of how the board kind of gathers little bits snippets from all people that have done that topic and put them into a sample, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean you have to do it exactly that way, but it gives you an idea of the kinds of things to do. It helps kind of put some perspective on what plan, do, check, and act looks like for each topic. And those sample evidence stories are found in the Health and Safety Excellence Program Guide. The
Yeah, I'll
topic
probably need all
requirements
that from you. I don't think I got.
you've got, yeah, I've sent you everything, right? Yeah.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Oh yeah, I just send those. If you're at the topic selection stage, you would have gotten those maybe even twice by now, right?
Okay.
If you can't find them in your emails, then let me know. I'll send them to you again. But that
Awesome.
program guide and the topic requirements guide are critical documents for you to work on your topics. All right. Anybody else? Okay. I don't see. As usual, I'm open to suggestions. I haven't gotten many lately, so let me know if there's anything specific you want to review, any topic you want to take a look at, specifically go over at our meetings. I'd be more than glad to do that. Um, and you can email that to me. I'll put it on the agenda for our next meeting. And speaking of next meeting, um, I'm looking at probably closer to mid and September. So right now I'm looking at September the 18th. So it'll be kind of just as we getting into fall, unfortunately. Um, so September 18th, tentatively now, and we'll send out the invite for that if you want to circle it on your calendar. I don't think there's any holidays or anything that impact that date. So that's what I'm looking at now. All right. If there are no questions, I'll give you back for 15 minutes in your day. I will thank you for attending. And again, I'm sure with many of you, we'll be in touch back and forth with emails and all kinds of things between now and September. All right. So on that note, also enjoy the rest of the summer. All right.